The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
14:20 in the morning, 14 minutes and 20 seconds where the sports talk to get you through your daily commute. Hot takes, recaps, best bets, and a little humor to get your day going in the right direction. Sit back, grab your coffee, and let's get into it. All right, 14:20 in the morning for the 6th day of November, 2023. Today's show, as always, is brought to you by SeatGeek.com, the SeatGeek app. Use promo code 1420pod at SeatGeek.com today and save yourself $20 on your first purchase over there at SeatGeek. Remember, we are part of the Belly Up Media Network. Go to BellyUpSports.com for all their great articles and other podcasts over there at BellyUpSports.com. And thank you once again from all of us here at 1420 World Headquarters for making us a part of your day each and every day, whether it be in podcast form, YouTube, or however you get the content from my app or Dave's app or even Jake's app now and everything else we got going on there. It's thank you very much from all of us here at 1420 World Headquarters, like I said. Well, everybody's at the 10-game point in the National Hockey League season now, 10 games or more. Everyone's playing, and as always, you get that point a couple weeks before American Thanksgiving where you pretty much are who your record says you are. Yeah, we talked about it last week. You could go on an unprecedented Laura Branigan Gloria run like the 2019 St. Louis Blues went, but usually what you see is what you get at this point in the season, and what you see and what you get from a lot of the Canadian teams isn't going to be nearly enough to get themselves into a playoff race or anything else. The only team that is doing playing a little surprisingly, but not out of their mind surprisingly, is the Vancouver Canucks. I got Jeff Patterson on the show. I think it's Wednesday he's coming on. We're going to record Tuesday, be on Wednesday, but that's a whole other story for another day to talk about the Canucks team who has a big game tonight against it's a big game for the Edmonton Oilers. No getting around that. We'll get them in half a second. But every team around the National Hockey League is in trouble. In Canada, kind of has their own problems going on right now. Montreal's playing pretty well. Winnipeg's playing pretty well. Calgary got a win on Saturday night against Seattle. 6-3, I think it was. But we'll start with the lowly Edmonton Oilers. And I can say lowly, they're 2-7-1. I thought they were going to make a change, not a change, but they were going to make a change for the better. Things were going to start flowing in the right direction with that win in the Heritage Classic that they got over the Calgary Flames a week ago yesterday. But things have not gone well for the Oilers once again this weekend. They lost on Saturday afternoon at home at Rogers Arena, Rogers Center, Rogers Place, which one it's called. I can't remember. There's so many Rogers buildings here in the great country of Canada. I can't keep track of them. Probably should. It's kind of my job, but one of those things. The Oilers lost once again 5-2 to Nashville Predators in a game where they once again started Jack Campbell in net. Why they keep going back to Campbell? I guess you got to see what you got and see what you can possibly do and see maybe increase some trade value, increase some trade equity, I guess is the proper terminology. But Campbell, he just don't got it once again, stopping 29 to 34 shots for a .853 save percentage. Those are Redlinski type numbers that get you on a podcast and out of the net pretty quick. But it's one of those situations where no matter what, say it all the time. I just heard it, Jeff Merrick. It's not even a Brenter. Maybe Jeff Merrick stole it from me, but Jeff Merrick on his show just said basically, if you don't have any, you show me a good goalie, I'll show you a good coach. And the first thing that came up on the old Twitter machine on Saturday after that loss to Nashville was they got to get rid of Coach Jay Woodcroft, and you got Ken Holland's got to find a way to get a new coach in there and everything else. Well, I hate to break it to you guys. A new coach isn't going to fix that goaltending problem. A new coach isn't going to fix the problem that's throughout that team defensively and everything else. Goaltending is so important. If you don't get a save, and that's the thing. It's not so much not getting saved. It's not getting saves the opportune times. They don't get a big save when needed. They don't get a big save, and it's out of Stuart Skinner too. They're in Edmonton, so it's not just a Campbell problem. He's obviously the bigger problem, but they're not getting big saves at the proper time. This team is flawed beyond belief. They can't go out and get another coach every time something doesn't go well for the Edmonton Oilers team. The team's built pretty with a lot of flaws. Darnell Nurse, that contract hurts a lot at $9 million plus a year. So you're in your salary cap hell. McDavid's at his $12 million, and thank God they have. God ain't watching, so I just don't know why we're thanking God. But thank goodness, I guess, that they have Draisaitl on a very team friendly contract for another season. But you have a situation where McDavid's already on his third coach. Dave Tippett, who they have. Dave Tippett, Oh, I can't remember now for whatever reason. It doesn't much matter who they've had over the years. But Todd McClellan, that's the other one. McClellan, Tippett, and now Woodcroft. So maybe it's not all on the coaching staff, and maybe it's not all on just the team construction. Maybe they've got a little bit of to push back on McDavid. Yeah, you're making $12 million. Yeah, you're underpaid, and you're doing what you can. But there's always seems to be a little bit more you can give. And it seems to me that I'm not blaming the guy because he's obviously the greatest player to ever play the game, but or the best player to play the game. Sorry, but the thing is, he's not. He doesn't quite have it this year. Whether there's an injury situation going on with him, he just doesn't seem 100% right. He hasn't been producing points. Yeah, it's a two-trick pony team with McDavid and with Draisaitl, but he's not producing numbers that you can. You know they can't be scoring 6 or 7 goals every night and outscore their goaltending woes. I understand that 100%, but there's different situation, different defensive things that it seems McDavid's kind of missing this year a little bit, and yet they built their team around him. And yes, you can build your team around him, but he just does not seem to have whatever it takes to that's I don't you can't put your finger on it when you come to a guy with that kind of a skill level. And his post-game press conference the other night with death by 1,000 cuts kind of said everything. He's pretty frustrated, and look on his face when he was sitting on the bench after another loss at home was a very, very telling tale of how McDavid feels while playing in Edmonton right now. And you wonder how long that's going to last. It's a conspiracy theory 100%, but they got to get some goaltending. They got to get it fast, or else that team is in big trouble. They have a pretty big 3-game road trip coming up. 2 games that they really should win. I don't expect that they'll win tonight, but you never know. You never know what might happen, because that Vancouver team is really good. It can be interesting to see what Jeff Patterson has to say about them. But this Vancouver team is really good, playing really good hockey, and they're flying a little bit. And it's a big 3-game road trip for the Edmonton Oilers, where they got to win 2 out of 3, and they got Vancouver, then they got Seattle, then they have the San Jose Sharks, are absolutely pathetic. We'll talk about them in half a second. But that San Jose team is bad, and if they go into San Jose and somehow lose to San Jose Sharks, you got to think there's going to be wholesale changes right on through. You can't think that owner Dale Cates would put up with something like that. So the more that San Jose loses, the harder it is for the other teams that are going to be facing the San Jose Sharks in the upcoming games ahead. Because eventually San Jose's got to win at least one game. It's not going to go 0-82 throughout the season, although they look like it. But it's one of those things that this 3-game road trip right now, she's make or break for the Oilers season. You hate to say it's over before it started, because it's you're basically going to be 1/5 of the way into the season in a couple of days, and then or 1/6, sorry, so the math works, and then it could be over right now if they don't get 2 out of 3 on this trip. 3 out of 3 would be perfect. Obviously, 2 out of 3 is, if they don't get at least that, there's going to be wholesale changes, and if one of those losses comes in San Jose on Thursday night, there's going to be hell to pay in oil country, and it won't be pretty, and you're going to see a lot of change. I don't think it's just going to stop at the coach. I think it'll go right to the GM. It'll go right on through, and they'd be best bet for wholesale changes. Go right on through. Go get rid of the goalie coach, because there must be a problem there too. And let's not say the goalie coach is the biggest end all and beat all. Like, Campbell just hasn't got it between the ears. He's just not good enough. He had a career year in Toronto. He fooled me with that big year he had there a couple of years back. Got the contract, and now he's set for life with making the $4.5 million a year. You can't blame a goalie all the time, but you know what? You can blame the goalie most of the time, and this is one of those situations that you can blame a goalie for that. In Ottawa on Saturday night, after Ottawa's loss to the Tampa Bay Lightning, still a really good hockey team. Let's not sugarcoat it. The Ottawa fans booed the Senators as they're leaving the ice. 6-4 loss. Ottawa's got a good hockey team, not a great hockey team. They have a little scandal going on there with the betting situation they had with the player, and then they lost a draft pick earlier on. We'll talk about that in half a second too, but they got booed off the ice, and Brady Tkachuk, team captain Brady Tkachuk, went on the airwaves when he was asked about it. He said it was frustrating to hear the boos, and he basically said it was bullshit that it was happening. It took me till 10:17 in the morning on Monday morning here to swear for you guys, but it's one of those things where maybe Tkachuk should probably shut his yap. I agree that booing is pretty childish at a hockey game or a baseball game or any sporting event when it comes down to it, especially by grown adults. If a kid wants to boo and whatever, that's what kids do, right? But when you have a situation where your team's getting booed off the ice, then you must be playing bad. No fan wants to pay their $200 a seat and see their team play bad. And then bad enough for grown men and women to boo, that must have been pretty bad. I'm not going to pretend I watched that game on Saturday night. The Ottawa Senators are not must-see TV for me. I was too busy crying in my beer over the USC Trojans' pitiful performance on defense the other night and losing another game to Washington. But it's Tkachuk, I think my advice to you, I know you'll never listen to this, but maybe you will. Maybe someone will play this. My advice to you is if you don't want to get booed, play better. If you don't want your team to get booed, urge your team and be a leader for that team to play better. People don't go to arena. They don't pay their $200 to boo. They want to go and have a good time. They want to see their team win. Nobody actually pays money to watch their team lose. So my advice to you, Brady Tkachuk, is shut your yap, and have your team play better. And in that way, you won't have a chance to get booed. I am going to lay on the line that the Tampa Bay Lightning haven't been booed since they've been going on that glorious run since they've been on in 2020. They've had some games where they didn't go so well. They lost out of the playoffs, everything else. But teams who play well don't get booed. It's really quite that simple. And I don't even think you have to play well. People have a pretty a high knowledge of hockey. Like hockey fans who go to games on a consistent basis, whether it be in Canada or the United States, they get it. They know what a good effort is, right? They know what a solid effort is. Yes, they might have loftier expectations than are reachable or attainable. But if you play well and you work hard, you won't get booed. It's actually that simple. So Tkachuk, you got to shut your yap and maybe have a heart-to-heart with your team instead of going on front of the media and getting the clickbait. Now we're talking about it, right? One of those things. A team that probably should get booed. I don't know if they are getting booed, but they got a chance of messing with a long-time standing record. I'm talking about the San Jose Sharks. They're on pace to not win any games right now because they don't have a win yet. They've been blown out. They given up 10 goals in 2 straight games. One was to Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins. I think it was on Saturday night, and then on Thursday it was to the Vancouver Canucks. And that powerhouse team that's rolling right now. The worst record in NHL history for all time is 1974-75 Washington Capitals, who finished with a record of 8-67-5, good for 21 points. And right now, the San Jose Sharks don't look like they're going to get there. I mean, that's going to be a tough thing to have. That's going to be a tough thing to get to and to attain. But you got to think that team, like you can rebuild a little bit, but that's got to be something that even GM Mike Greer didn't see coming. Yeah, they had a bad season last year. I think 60 points, whatever it was, 61 points last season, but it didn't turn out very well for the San Jose Sharks this year. And how many years is an actual rebuild? And you got to be thinking like everything that you tried to do and everything you're trying to accomplish is kind of going the wayside. This is pretty much, I compare them a little bit for like how many years did they have Joe Thornton and how many years did they have Patrick Marleau, and they made the playoffs and didn't do any damage. They got the finals once in all those years, but this is what the Canucks ran into a number of years ago by just making the playoffs and just being good enough to get in, get a couple of home dates, put some money in the owner's pockets, and then that's it. And San Jose finds himself when you're mediocre, and eventually mediocre falls out and you end up being bad. And that's what San Jose has right now. Can they make trades and improve? Like you probably don't want to. You probably want to just stay the course with the guys that you got, because what happens if you send some guys down the minors and bring some guys down from the minors up and they put in a little extra effort and you start winning hockey games, then you find yourself out of that number 1 draft pick. I know it's a lottery system, but there's a way you can pad your way to getting the first overall pick. So you're pretty much stuck with the team you got. You don't want to bring guys up who are going to put the effort in. They're going to want to get long-term NHL contracts. They're going to be long-term because the paychecks are a lot different in the AHL than they are in the NHL. And so you want to have a group of guys who are, I don't want to say defeated on the inside, like you would be losing night in, night out, but you also don't want a team to overexert themselves and overextend themselves and overvalue themselves, because all of a sudden you might win a game here and win a game there and find yourselves in a situation where you don't have that number 1 pick or a clearer route to the number 1 pick. So San Jose, they could set some all-time records this year, and the place is still pretty full from what I understand. Actually, they had 100% sell. I get this thing every few days about what the attendance is at NHL arenas. The attendance at San Jose is still fantastic. So it's always been a great place to go watch hockey games. It's always been a great atmosphere there in San Jose. You just wonder how long that's going to last. 2 more things before we get on to the birthdays and all that stuff. We're here at 14:20 in the morning, sponsored by SeatGeek.com. The Chicago Blackhawks got once again. Everybody knows about the situation that came up 2 years ago with the assistant coach or video coach, whatever it was. I won't say his name because we shouldn't give those guys the light of day anymore and talk about this stuff. But once again, over the weekend, there were some allegations that came out of another player, another Black Ace that played for that 2010 Stanley Cup champion Chicago Blackhawks team, where there was a situation where the sexual abuse and assault and everything else was going on, and basically holding this guy and blackmailing. This thing that came out over the weekend. And if you look back a couple of years ago and the fine that came out, a couple of people lost their jobs in the organization. Joel Quenneville, who was the coach in Florida when everything came out and about, and he was basically forced to resign of his job. And he still hasn't been reinstated by the National Hockey League. He's been up for debate about the new Oilers coach, but he's not even reinstated by the NHL yet. There was a situation that came up over the weekend again that it was brought up, and every time Rick Westhead, you see him on Twitter, like, oh no, now what, and it's once again it came up. The Ottawa or the Chicago Blackhawks, they got away with one last time by only getting fined $1 million. There was obviously a lack of organizational control back then. Yes, it's one person, and yes, but it was swept under the rug and nothing was done about it. And if Rick Westhead didn't come out, get this story a couple years ago, would never been brought up, and the guy would have basically been still coaching, wouldn't be in jail, whatever it is. And it's a bad situation. It's a bad look for the NHL right now, because they only got that $1 million fine, and that was it. And what's $1 million to that franchise when they're setting attendance records for how many years, and the TV contracts, everything else. And it's nothing for these owners to, like, yes, you never want to lose $1 million, but it's not for these owners to sign over $1 million. They didn't lose any draft picks and everything else that happened there. You look at who the Blackhawks got now with Connor Bedard, and they probably shouldn't. You looking back now, they probably shouldn't have been even eligible to draft Bedard. They probably should have lost the first overall draft pick. You look at the situation that happened with the Ottawa Senators last week, where there was a first overall draft pick was taken away. The new owner came out and talked about it, like, why am I losing a draft pick when it was something that the GM did? There was something that NHL Central Scouting or Central Services should have taken care of. There was a guy got traded when he shouldn't have got traded because there was a no trade clause, and on it went. And there's a story, if you want to go find some hockey news, I'll put it up in the show's notes. But you look at something that if you compare it, not to as bad as the Penn State situation, but there's something that there's no organizational control, and nothing really happened to the team on the ice. That like with the Bedard situation, it's improved that team already a little bit. But Bedard shouldn't have been in Chicago in my eyes, because the Chicago Blackhawks did not lose anything to hurt their hockey team with their situation that happened, and that's where you really got to hurt the team. Because what's an owner care? Like I said, you got to hurt the team itself. You got to hurt the GM itself. You have to hurt the coaching staff itself. The team on a whole has to be hurt, in my opinion. Yes, the new players who came in had nothing to do with what happened in 2010, and then players playing now they were 10 years old back then, right? So they shouldn't be, these players shouldn't be punished, but the organization needs to be punished. And finding a team of $1 million isn't nearly enough punishment, in my opinion. And now this team is still set to flourish with Bedard at the helm, right? So it's one of those things that you hate talking about, you hate talking about these things, but real life enters the world of sports far too often, obviously, as we know. But it's just one of those things where you have to hurt these teams when they don't control their organization, or they try to cover things up. There's cover-ups all around the world. There's one happening on TV right now. I'm mesmerized by it. But it's there's all kinds of things that go on that to maybe you really got to sting the guys where it's going to hurt. And if the team is really bad, then no one's going to go. And if they don't get that first, because how many jerseys has Chicago sold with Bedard that they probably wouldn't be selling if they weren't allowed to get him in that pick? And they should have lost some draft picks. And now it's coming out again. And how much more is going to come out in Chicago Blackhawks? A couple years ago, me and Dave, pretty much 2 years ago to the day, me and Dave had this conversation, one of the best shows we've ever done, hard-hitting journalism for the 1420 guys. And you think that it was bad, then it's going to get worse now, because now there's something else going to come out, and how many more of these are going to come out in the coming months and years ahead? Everything else, it's crazy. Last one before we get out of here, the Toronto Maple Leafs are basically showing who they are once again. Last week there was a situation where ultra rat for the Boston Bruins, Brad Marchand took Timothy Liljegren into the boards. Some say it was dirty, some say it wasn't. I don't think it was overly dirty. It wasn't clean, but I don't think it was dirty. But Biznasty, Biznett took a run at the situation on Hockey in Canada on Saturday night, talking about it, and he broke it down really, really well. That it was kind of just a tangle. Guys went into the boards, but the biggest thing that the Leafs have, they showed how little sandpaper that core actually has. This offseason, Brad Treliving, the GM, went out and got Domi, Reeves, and Bertuzzi, who had no kickback whatsoever, and those guys are just newer members of the team. So 10 games in, you don't know if they have the Toronto Maple Leaf tattooed on their chest yet. But it's the rest of the core that did absolutely nothing, didn't say a word to Marchand, even when Marchand went to the bench. And that just goes to show what kind of team the Toronto Maple Leafs have. They're skill beyond belief. This team isn't going to win anything with that kind of a non-pushback, to not even question Marchand and what he did. Yet the coach Sheldon Keefe came out out and said that he was not happy with the lack of a pushback or the lack of a situation, anything that was being said. But there should have been something being said. There should have been something from team captain John Tavares. There should have been maybe. I'm not suggesting that Austin Matthews goes and punches anybody in the head. I'm not suggesting that that William Nylander goes and pushes Marchand around, because you're not going to have Ryan Reeves, and Reeves should shut his yap too, talking about it 2 days later and not doing anything that night. Yeah, you're not getting a lot of ice time. It's probably a good thing. Seems like every time you get on the ice, the other team scores, which happened again on Saturday night in that loss to Buffalo. But you have a situation there where the Leafs don't have a cohesive unit at all. They're a team-built team first. They're a very me squad, and I think you're going to see the Leafs once again not do any damage in the playoffs once again, because they don't have that grit and that sandpaper. They showed it on Saturday night when there was a situation with Tampa Bay and how those older guys are still jumping on people's backs and giving us a tap on the lace to a guy who screws around. They're a very gritty team there in Tampa, and they stuck together. They won a couple of Stanley Cups. You look at that Las Vegas team who won last year. They don't mind punching people in the face when things aren't going their way, and the Toronto Maple Leafs don't have that, and they showed their true colors once again last Thursday in that loss to their arch rival, the Boston Bruins. Interesting. It's going to be a great week coming ahead here in the National Hockey League. Got some guests coming up. Got doing an interview today, later on today with Ryan from the Seattle Kraken podcast out there in Seattle. So that should be a good one. Going to talk Kraken hockey, see what they think about going on. If they got past they're no longer the expansion team anymore. They got to start if the fan base is getting a little bit sick of it, and what's going on with Matty Beniers and the rest of the team out there in Seattle. So that'll be up for tomorrow. And then, like I said, Jeff Patterson of Vancouver Sports Radio, he'll be up with us on Tuesday. He'll be up on Wednesday. So that's something to look forward to. So that's what we got going on here. And then tonight, me and Dave are doing our usual NFL review of the week 9. I guess we're into the National Football League season. Anyways, here's a word from our friends over at SeatGeek.
The foul baller. If there's a ball that's gone foul, he's gone to get it. Under his watchful gaze, all bevs, binoculars, and ballpark brats are safe. He's the only thing that stands between his section and certain destruction. That's why he only trusts SeatGeek with his tickets. The ticketing app trusted by fans. SeatGeek, so fans can fan.
All right, let's get to on this day, some birthdays, and get everybody out of here for another day here at 14:20 in the morning. What do we got here? On this day in 1993, Evander, the real deal Holyfield, beat Riddick Bowe in 12 rounds of what may be the most bizarre moments in boxing history, when in the 7th round, the crowd got off their feet and people began to run for cover. Holyfield took his eyes off Bowe for a second and then told Bowe to look up. And what they saw next was a man in a parachute coming towards the ring. The lines of this guy's parachute or paraglider got caught in the ring lights. And after he landed on the top rope with his parachute still tangled in the lights, he was promptly pulled down from the ropes and beaten unconscious by security, and each boxer's entourage. Was absolutely bizarre. The fight resumed 20 minutes later with both boxers obviously rattled by the interruption. The two warriors slugged it out to the final bell when Holyfield coming to a winning in a majority decision to regain the heavyweight championship of the world on this day in 1993. One of the most bizarre things you'll ever see in the world of sports, and that's when boxing was at its I want to say at its height. But the heavyweight division was so great. And you remember watching those fights with Holyfield. I was a big Holyfield fan back then. And just watching that whole thing unfold on Sports Center the next day, like, what the hell happened here? And this guy, like, yeah, it would never happen today with the security and everything that goes on at these events. But to think that a guy came out of nowhere and just crashed the party in the 7th round of a boxing event, to even have that come into your mind, it's something to behold. It's one of those things you'll never, like when you see it, you kind of laugh about it now, but it must have been pretty scary. And I think that Bo's wife was pregnant at the time, and she fainted when it was all, because she was right near ringside when it was all going down, and she fainted, and she's fine. The baby was good and everything else. But yeah, just craziness to think that would happen in our lifetime. Like, yeah, geez, you can't even go into a building without getting searched or anything else. Now we're just flying in. Crazy to think that happened. And anyways. Happy birthday to Pat Tillman, born on this day in 1976 in Fremont, California. Tillman played college football at Arizona State and was named Pac-10 Defensive Player of the Year in 1990. well as the Arizona State's team MVP. Tillman was drafted in the 7th round, 226 overall, by the Arizona Cardinals in the 1998 NFL Draft. Tillman played 4 seasons for the Cardinals, compiling 340 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 3 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles, 15 pass deflections, and 3 fumble recovers in 60 games. In May of 2002, Tillman turned down a contract offer for $3.6 over 3 years and enlisted in the U.S. Army. Tillman was first deployed to Iraq as part of Operation Iraqi Freedom in September of 2003, and then to Afghanistan in 2004, and was killed in a friendly fire situation gone wrong on April 22nd, 2004. Pat Tillman was born on this day in 1976. It was a crazy story, different story. A guy that was selfless, could have made a bunch of money, couldn't have been in the NFL for a long time, but went and served his country after the 9/11 situation in 2001. It's one of those stories that exploited a lot by the NFL and everything else. Don't get into that to look at a negative thing on a guy's birthday, and especially a soldier who passed away in the line of duty. I wouldn't say the line of fire, but in the line of duty. It was a crazy situation back there. So Pat Tillman, born on this day in 1976. That's it for the show for today. Like I said, me and Dave are back at it tonight, do our NFL talk, and then I got some interviews coming up for this week. Thanks once again to intern Jake for lining these up for us. A lot of work he's put behind the scenes. He's trying to find us an athlete to talk to about the Oilers situation, maybe, or the Flames situation on Thursday night with Dave, so we'll get to go on that. But we've got lots of shows coming up for you guys on a daily basis here, as always, here at 1420 World Target Headquarters. Make sure you go to SeatGeek, get your tickets. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, and talk with people at the show and get it out there and keep it going to the masses, help the show keep growing to heights we never thought that it would get to. We appreciate everything you guys have been doing for us. Listen to other podcasts as well. As soon as I'm done here, I listen to Steel and Teal with Garrett and Jim from Fan of the Van and everything else. Make sure to listen to those guys talking some football. And sports is it's flying right now. The MLB season's done, but there's the behind the scenes stuff. And does anybody care about the Gold Glove anymore? If you even win a Gold Glove, do you even care? Do you put it up on the mantle? I don't know. It's just weird. They were awarded yesterday. I saw Volpe won one, but other than that, I didn't care. Anyways, that's it for today's show. We'll talk to you guys later on tonight and then back tomorrow with 1420 in the morning. Remember, it doesn't matter where you are. It's who you're with. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. You just listened to the 1420 Sports Bar Podcast. 4 beer with the sports talk and a whole lot more. We are part of the Belly Up Media Network. Let's get into it.